Okay, thank you, everybody. It's the middle of the afternoon. We're going to be talking about the importance of intercultural communications and global PR strategies. One might argue that if you live in India, you're already communicating across cultures because our language, our dialects, our cultures almost change every 20 kilometers of the land. So we're very lucky to have with us representation from a university, an American marketplace that has global ambitions, legacy Indian brand operating across more than 100 countries, and also one of the oldest and most respected brands in India with Max and Antara. So let's start with you, Jasrita. University. One might argue that it's already a melting pot of students coming from different socioeconomic strata, different regions, different languages across the country. How do you manage intercultural communications there? And then, of course, externally, your stakeholders are equally diverse with policymakers and civil society organizations and much more. How does Ashoka's approach to liberal arts impact the way in which it looks at intercultural communication?
Wow, that's quite a mouthful of a question. Anyway, yeah, I think you said it how a university, any university, sort of intersects with all age groups, both genders. So you cannot say that my communication audience is only, for instance, 25 to 35 male SECA. You can't say that across parents, parents, potential students, governments, regulators, policymakers, alums. You're touching almost everyone, right? And your communication, and it's a high involvement category, it's a high interest category, if I may say. You spoke about liberal arts, which is the foundation on which Ashoka University is built, and the pedagogy that we follow is interdisciplinary, which means biology is very much at home with philosophy, and computer science finds common ground with chemistry, right? The same integration we carry forward in our communication. So when we are doing communication, you're thinking about each stakeholder group, the impact it is going to have on them, both internal and external. Frequent buy-ins are important before you put it out, right? Consultation, collaborative sessions are very important before the actual product gets to see the light of the day. These are some of the things that we do. I think examples are good, so very quickly I'll take two examples of, we have something called an Ashoka Bridge program. Why do we need the Bridge program? Is because you might know or might not know, but 45% of all students are on financial aid, some sort of financial aid. They come from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. So out of which 25% are on full financial aid. Now you can imagine when all of them come to a place like Ashoka, it could be intimidating for a few. Assimilation could be a problem. So the Ashoka Bridge program is where you get all of them. They also come from different continents, different parts of the country and beyond. So you bring them here. You ease them into, the Center of Writing and Communication would help them with spoken Hindi to students who are coming from outside, how to navigate and get an auto or navigate your way through metro, et cetera, et cetera. So spoken and written bilingual communication you'd help with. Whatever stresses they have, people coming from south of India to, a university in Haryana, how to assimilate them in all of that. So they have a heads up of 3 weeks. And that's when the larger cohort comes for the orientation session, and they're ready and confident now to mingle in that group and go ahead. So that's one example. Tomorrow, for our flagship program, which is the Young India Fellowship, we have the convocation. The convocation would be bilingual in both languages, but 1/3 of this cohort is made up of first-generation college goers. So their parents are going to be part of the audience. This batch speaks 25 languages. So as the ceremony is on, there are 8 or 9 language interpreters who are going to be sitting with those parents and maybe speaking in Gujarati or Malayalam or helping them understand the key components. And I can go on and on, but I think that's a good starting point.
That sounds like probably one of the best examples we've got of really trying to be inclusive to people from different backgrounds. But I think more than the demographics, there's also attitudes and beliefs and diversity in all of that.
That's true.
And of course, Ashoka promotes critical thinking.
Yes.
So, when you've got an environment where you're encouraging students to be thinking critically, and then of course there's so much diversity in how people think and believe. So how do you manage situations like that when it comes to trying to, avoid conflict and build cohesion?
Some conflict is natural. All conflict is not bad. Critical thinking teaches you to question the dogmas, to question the done way of doing things. And when you teach young children to do that, they are going to exercise it. And I think it is par for the course. What should I say? We do grow a bit of a thick skin. And you also try to be, as there is a liberal arts education, also a bit liberal in your approach to say that this is how, yeah, and go ahead and do that. There are different microcultures which are there, and as long as we are all going ahead with the one agenda, what do we say about Ashoka University? Is the interdisciplinarity, is the liberal arts foundation, it is global in pursuit, but Indian in thinking. As far as all of those values are going ahead, some bit of friction is okay. It's all right to live with.
Thank you. We're going to come back to this, and we are going to open the floor to questions from the audience, so save those really tough ones coming up. All right, so Prasiddha, now belonging anywhere is Airbnb's sort of philosophy. And what that means is you're trying to bring global and Indian travelers and give them some really hyper-local experiences. And of course, intercultural communication has to be inherent to that. But have you ever faced a situation where, because it's a large multinational, where you've got a one-size-fits-all sort of message coming down, where you've had to then push back and say that, hey, actually, we'll have to look at this very differently for these markets? Tell us.
Thank you so much, Girish. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here, E4M team. I've had the opportunity to work as a part of a global team in the US ages ago. I've had the opportunity to work and lead country comms out of India for India, South Asia at Uber. And more recently at Airbnb, I've moved to an APAC role. And I think the one thing that I've commonly heard across from people is how hard it is to work with the other party. So when you're part of the global team, it's like, how hard is it to work with the country teams? They just don't get it. The country teams would always say, oh my God, how hard is it to work with the HQ? They just don't get it. And I think that sentiment continues. And guess what? It is very hard. And the sooner we realize it, that it is hard to communicate across cultures with people sitting in different parts of the world, dealing with completely different circumstances at their country level, it will become much easier for us to really find that balance and find that way to really work across cultures. And to my mind, a lot of times when we talk about like working across cultures or localization, it becomes so much more about translating into a certain language. And I think especially for consumer brands like the one I work for, that is the one thing that we don't want to get into. It should not be about just translating something into a language and then feeling great about how much we've contributed as a regional team to make a campaign a success. I think it is so much more about the intent. It is about the context to every campaign. It is just about, how is that message getting delivered? Where is that message getting delivered? What is the phase of evolution your brand is in that particular country? Airbnb could be at a very different sort of a level in terms of brand awareness, in terms of maturity in, say, Europe or the US or, say, Australia. But are we at the same space in a country like Japan? Maybe not. Is there scope for us to move up that evolution chain in India? 100% yes. So I think it is just very important to get all of that context together. If I were to pick some examples, I think some brands have done it really well. And this is not just about communication. It's about just how you as a brand, as a company show up. I've had the privilege to work with Uber, and I remember when Uber was started back in the day, it was the founder, Travis, his goal was to create magical experiences. And magical experiences meant you push a button, a car arrives, you get into it, you complete your journey, you step out, and you're done. That was magical. There were no touch points in between. But when the same product came to India, we knew that credit cards are not going to be something that everybody's going to have, and I'm talking about like ages ago, right? So it was important to include cash as an option for payment. Now, which did mean that you are creating an additional touch point between the consumer, the rider, and the driver. And was that the actual philosophy that the founder started with? No. But was that change important? Absolutely, yes, which is why Uber is where it is today and how much a part of our lives it is today. I think it's also interesting to see how brands then, therefore, look at product localization, whether it is the example in terms of cash that I gave or booking a ride for somebody else, or even OTP, which was something which I remember back then Ola had, but Uber didn't. But they brought that in because that was about working and providing something to the audience that was very, very important at a cultural level, at a country level. And I think that's something many brands have done a great job of, even when it comes to communications. If you pick Dove as an example, I think Dove has always spoken about, inner beauty and body positivity. And that has been the theme. And while that has been the theme in terms of a global framework for what the brand wants to stand for, but if you look at how it sort of comes to life in different parts of the world, the themes vary. In India, it could potentially also have elements about, confidence, like gender equality. It could be about respect. Nike would be working with sports stars around the world, but when in India, they would add an element of national pride. And I think those examples are endless. These were the some that I researched on yesterday, and I thought these were really cool. And I think like that continues. And for me, from an Airbnb perspective as well, when we look at campaigns, whether it's about an inclusive travel campaign targeting the LGBTQI, I know that this is also going to land very differently in different parts of the world. And we might, as a global company, have a certain perspective coming from the valley, but the way that message has to deliver, where it gets delivered, is going to change. In a country where there is going to be legal issues, or where probably the individuals featured in the campaign might risk being alienated, we will not take that route. Or, something that I feel really proud of, I hope some of you have at least seen our campaigns. We worked on these, creating only on Airbnb experiences with beautiful celebrities opening up their gorgeous, luxurious homes. And that's something which works very well for India, given, there is still that interest in knowing how a celebrity lives and having a chance to live that life in some form. But in a market like Japan, where there are much larger issues that the country is grappling with when it comes to housing and when it comes to hospitality, we did take a similar campaign, and we actually launched it a month ago with the founder. We did work with celebrities, but we weren't talking about luxurious home. We were talking about kuminkas and the gorgeous culture in Japan and promoting the cultural heritage. We had even the celebrities who came on board were people who had a really strong stance, and they were not just celebrities and influencers in their right in terms of the business they were in, but also, in terms of what they thought about the culture. So yeah.
I'm going to come back to you in a bit, Prasiddha, but moving on to Michelle, now we're talking about a legacy Indian brand, 100 plus countries, and I think earlier when we were speaking, you were telling us about how you've worked from aerospace to soaps.
And everything in between.
And everything in between in one conglomerate. So talk to us about, when we look at products that are as diverse as hair care to agarbattis, when you go international also, it's as a global PR strategy, how do you sort of avoid the exoticization of this while maintaining the authenticity of the brand?
Thanks, Girish. I'm so glad that Prasiddha touched upon just mere translation, right? Because consumers actually don't want to listen to their language. They want to understand whether you are understanding their lives. They want to have that emotional connect, right? So cultural relevance always supersedes mere translation. And I want to share an example because I think you'll relate far better if I share this example. I made a big boo-boo in my early years in my career in 2009 with just mere translation. We were hosting a press conference in Agra, and it was a hair color press conference, and I invited a hairstylist from Bombay. The Hindi translation of the press release read, Mumbai-based hairstylist, Tanya, comes and trains Nais on new age hair coloring techniques, obviously in Hindi. Little did I know Nai is a community up north. And they were extremely insulted because you called the Mumbai-based hairstylists in the Hindi press release, and you translated our term to Nai. And I was that one little chicklet running in the room because they were throwing the press release and throwing chairs from here and there, and I really didn't know what to do. That's when I realized that I unintentionally trivialized a cultural sensitivity, right? It was not intentional. And it could have snowballed into a great issue. Obviously we salvaged the situation. But sometimes what we feel is factually correct. ये तो factually correct है, नहीं ही बोलते हैं, is not, it can be culturally damaging, right? So it's so important for us to get our homework and understand what the sensitivities are. Another fun example I have, which was for Hit Anti-Roach Gel. On Good Friday, I happened to scroll my social media page and I landed on the Hit Anti-Roach Gel page. I see a picture of the Last Supper. And I don't know how many people in this room would relate to a Last Supper, but if you have been to a Catholic household, in their dining room you will see that picture of Jesus with the 12 disciples. It's the iconic Da Vinci painting. And Jesus and his 12 disciples were replaced by cockroaches. And the caption said, the last, thanks to Godrej Hit. It was India. Not many people could relate to it. I called the brand team. We pulled the post down immediately. And we salvaged the situation. Had this been a global crisis, we would have received a backlash like never before. So, these kind of things that we learn on the go. Our products, at Godrej, honestly, we are very deep-rooted with our values, right? And if you look at trust and legacy and simplicity, these are values that are not Indian. These are values that are universal. So it's very easy for us to take our products globally. Our products travel globally. Our insights travel globally. All we need to do is that we need to make it relevant. We just manifest it differently. We have, most of y'all will have, car owners will have the car air freshener membrane in their car, right? That product was designed in India. It was thought about in India. The Indian R&D created that product, but it's available in 60 countries now. We obviously changed the fragrances based on local preferences. But a same dashboard perfume, which is the Air dashboard perfume, in India is designed as a cup holder perfume. And can anyone tell me why it is designed as a cup holder perfume? Exactly. Because in India, car owners have idols and religious idols on the dashboard. So we had to customize that perfume for India, right? So product innovation is not always about problem solving, right? Meko ek car mein ek perfume dena that smells great. So it's about understanding those cultural nuances, understanding what the consumer needs and what's the sentiments, and that's when you innovate, right? So,
in a sort of era where we're all sort of so celebratory of successes, thank you for sharing mistakes. I think let's give her a round of applause for just being so open and candid about where we've got it wrong. Thank you, Michelle. Oh. Okay, excellent. So, Rohit, from Bennett Coleman to Castrol to now Antara Senior Care, that itself is quite a rich and varied experience. Now, tell us about your learnings from the current role where we're building a category for senior care in a market where it's not as well established as it is elsewhere, where there are lots of stigmas associated with it, and the values of what is senior care differs so blatantly from where the concept has originated from. So talk to us about how you're navigating these cultural issues in establishing senior care as a category.
Thank you, Girish. First of all, I'd like to thank all my co-panelists for sharing some wonderful examples of international, intercultural examples, examples of students from different parts of one country, from different states who need language interpreters, examples of the boo-boos that they've done in the past. I think before I look at the world and global PR strategies and national PR strategies, I want to look at this room. How many people in this room, if we can have a show of hands, have a family member above the age of 60? Above the age of 55? So about at least 4/5 of the room? Yeah? That, my friends, is intercultural diversity in your homes. Don't look at the world, don't look at the country, just look at your homes. There are people below the age of 40, and there are people above the age of 60. Can you imagine the diversity in their minds that they have with respect to culture? Yeah? That is the smallest microcosm of the challenge we have in trying to explain what senior care is about.
But also, Rohit, that is the size of the market.
Exactly. So whatever this room is, you just add probably 80%, and that is the size of the senior care market. The point I'm trying to make is that culture is not only about what you see at a macro level. Culture is what's in your mind. So the same person who's sitting in this room right now listening to a panel goes out and suddenly becomes this coffee aficionado who wants his particular coffee in that particular way, which is why they love Starbucks and they hate chayos. That's culture, right? And as much as we have been hearing all day about how we had to try and have personalized conversations, AI is helping us have those personalized conversations, the fact of the matter is you can never, ever be personal enough because something somewhere will not connect. And that is something we have to be okay with. There will be some students probably in the event tomorrow at Ashoka University who may not feel that connect. That's okay. Our job as marketers and communicators is to try and connect with each one as much as possible. But the fact of the matter is there is no global PR or any strategy for that matter. Everything is very local and today very human and personalized. I think in senior care what we're trying to do is to try and address as many types of audiences, which means as many types of needs as possible, and make them see what life can be for seniors versus what it is today. There was a time when we all had access to television, print, outdoors, right? One mass media channel that gave out one message, which is why, if you will remember when you were a teenager and you wanted to buy a particular brand of, let's say, clothing, your father just couldn't see why you need that. Today, we have ads that will be served to the child and they'll be served to the father. And that's the beauty of the change in the communication that has happened. And obviously PR and media relations and media communication has actually fallen that path. We can only get better at it. We can't ever get perfect. And as communicators, our job is to keep trying. And as there are enough examples shared here from Airbnb, Ashoka University, Godrej, we can keep trying to get more and more local, personal, and something that is really individual, but that counts at a large scale as intercultural. So, yeah, thank you.
Right, so we're out of time. Sorry we won't be able to do audience questions, but I mean, let's give it up for this panel. Fabulous perspectives, very diverse. Thank you so much for sharing so openly, so candidly.